Some people really should have minded their own business because they had no idea they were poking a peaceful soul that carried a warrior's spirit. From the very start, you were the plot twist in a story they thought they controlled, the quiet storm they never saw coming. On the surface, you looked calm, kind, and unbothered. But beneath that calm exterior lived a level of spiritual intelligence, sharp enough to turn any situation around without saying a word. They genuinely believed they were running circles around you, completely unaware that you were sitting back with a knowing smile thinking, "Bless your heart, you have no idea what you're dealing with." The truth is, people like you, those who are underestimated, are often the most perceptive. Research even supports it. The ones who spend more time watching than performing are the ones who truly see. And that's exactly why those who thought they had you figured out are now confused, embarrassed, and spiritually exhausted. They walked into the ring thinking you were soft, but they left realizing they'd just gone toe-to-toe with a spiritual assassin disguised as the nice one. You never needed to shout your power. You didn't enter rooms demanding attention or validation. You didn't announce that you could read energy faster than most people could finish a sentence. You let them underestimate you. You let them play their little games thinking you were naive while you were 3 steps ahead, calm and composed, watching everything unfold like a master strategist. And when the moment came, when every hidden intention finally showed itself, they realized you were never confused or lost. You were observing. You were calculating, spiritually, intuitively, energetically. You didn't have to manipulate anyone or expose them. They did it themselves. You simply stood still long enough for the masks to slip. The games backfired, the strategies collapsed, and in the end, they discovered the truth. You weren't the weak link. You were the quiet force, the unseen evaluator, the one soul they should have never underestimated. You were the spiritual strategist who reacts to nothing but strikes with precision when it matters most. Their biggest mistake was misreading your silence. They thought your quietness meant fear, ignorance, or confusion. What they didn't understand is that your silence was the highest form of intelligence in the room. While others scrambled to prove themselves, dominate conversations, or test your reactions, you simply observed. You weren't quiet because you were intimidated. You were quiet because you were collecting truth. And the truth, when left alone, speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. You didn't need to guess motives, you noticed them. You caught the shift in someone's eyes when they lied, the flicker of jealousy when another person was praised, the subtle tension in their tone when they thought you weren't paying attention. They mistook your calmness for cluelessness, not realizing you were conserving your energy for real outcomes instead of wasting it on their small performances. You saw who envied you, who mimicked you, who pretended to care while secretly competing, who sought your kindness without offering loyalty. You watched everything unfold like a silent witness at the edge of the stage. And because you never reacted, they kept revealing more, thinking your silence protected them when in reality it exposed them. The shock wasn't that you knew, it was how much you knew. When you finally withdrew your energy, cut ties, or changed direction, they were left stunned, trying to figure out how you had seen through every disguise. What they never understood is that your quietness wasn't weakness, it was your weapon. You weren't there to win arguments or prove your worth. You were studying character, mapping intentions, decoding patterns, and by the time they realized what you truly understood, it was already too late. You had already made your silent exit, calm, grounded, and undefeated, with every truth they thought you missed. Your discernment was never emotional, it was anatomical. Your ability to read people didn't come from being overly sensitive or reactive. It came from something far deeper and far sharper. You don't just notice behavior, you see the internal framework behind it. Where others read body language, you read spirit language. You pick up on intentions the same way others read facial expressions. And it's as if you've always had this built-in scanner that breaks people down to their true essence. even when they're hiding behind masks. Most people respond to what someone says, but you respond to what someone means. That's why it's nearly impossible to fool you. Emotional manipulation doesn't work because your intuition isn't swayed by charm, guilt-tripping, or flattery. You don't fall for the surface-level performance, the humble act, the fake kindness, the overly polite tone. As you see the blueprint beneath it all, the motive, the resentment, the hunger for control. People often called you too deep or accused you of overthinking, not realizing you were perceiving layers of truth they didn't even know they were revealing. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive. You notice the details that expose the whole person, the tone that betrays jealousy, the hesitation that reveals dishonesty, the over-explanation that signals guilt, the shift in energy that announces betrayal before it happens. Your discernment has saved you more times than you can count. And most of those who tried to deceive you never realized how close they came to being exposed. They thought you were reacting emotionally, but you were analyzing with a precision they couldn't comprehend. You weren't guessing, you were confirming. You weren't suspicious, you were accurate. And what truly shook people was how effortlessly you saw through them, how you could sense the truth they never spoke, detach before the betrayal, and walk away before their actions caught up with them. Your discernment wasn't a feeling, it was a built-in truth detector. That's why nothing stays hidden from you for long. Then came the next revelation, number 3. They thought you were soft until they learned you don't fight like a human. People love to underestimate what they can't label or understand. They saw your calmness, your refusal to argue, your ability to stay grounded amidst chaos, and assumed it meant weakness. What they didn't grasp was that your restraint was strategic, not submissive. And strategy, when fully mastered, is far deadlier than rage. You don't fight through noise or confrontation. You dismantle with precision. You don't strike where they expect. You strike where it matters. You don't match aggression with aggression. You let people overextend themselves while you quietly remove the supports beneath their illusion of control. Your retaliation is never loud or chaotic. It's surgical. You target the roots of manipulation, the fragile ego behind arrogance, the insecurity beneath deceit. You let truth collapse their lies under its own weight. By the time they realize what's happening, they're already trapped in the fallout of their own choices. That's what terrifies them most, your invisibility. You don't create chaos, you neutralize it. You don't swing wildly, you redirect energy. People panic when they can't identify the source of their defeat. They're trained to battle obvious enemies, not unseen forces that dismantle them from within. You operate like a quiet storm, precise, deliberate, unstoppable. While they were busy provoking, testing, and underestimating, you were observing, adapting, and waiting. And when you finally moved, it was with precision so clean they couldn't even trace the strike. No shouting, no mess, just consequences. Lies unraveled, facades cracked, and relationships collapsed under the truth you quietly allowed to surface. They thought they were fighting a person. What they were really facing was an intelligence that doesn't play by their rules, a presence too composed to react, too strategic to lose. They called you soft, harmless, forgettable. Now they know better. They were never outsmarting you. They were being outmaneuvered, outclassed, and outlasted. Your presence has always been a quiet mirror that exposes what others work so hard to hide. Some people believe that charm, manipulation, and clever words can conceal the decay within them, that as long as they maintain the performance, their envy and insecurity will remain buried. But when you walk into a room, the facade crumbles. Your energy doesn't need to speak, it simply reveals. Without a single word, you draw the truth out of people. The masks they spent years perfecting start to slip, and what seeps through is usually envy, insecurity, and the bitter residue of unhealed wounds. They thought they could manage their image, control the narrative, and stay untouchable. But under your silent observation, every false smile, every exaggerated compliment, every subtle twitch became a confession. While they were busy managing perception, you were decoding intention. What unsettles people most about you is that you don't expose them publicly. You let their own reflection do it. You don't accuse, you don't confront, you simply exist in a way that forces truth to surface. Your stillness is their undoing. Your silence becomes a mirror they can't escape, reflecting back the rot they thought they had buried. In your presence, their inner turbulence grows impossible to disguise. Their envy sharpens, their composure cracks, and their carefully crafted superiority starts to collapse under the weight of authenticity. They feel their insecurities magnify, not because you point them out, but because your energy won't let lies breathe. They mistake your calm for threat because around you, subtle deceit becomes impossible. By the time they realize what's happening, their self-assuredness is gone, and they're left wrestling with the truth of who they really are. You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves, and that's what terrifies them the most. Your presence doesn't start fights, it ends illusions. Then comes the next truth. Number 5. You were never outnumbered. They were outcalculated. People love to believe that power lies in numbers, that crowds, alliances, or noise can overpower a single focused mind. They think being louder, flashier, or more connected gives them control. But you've proven that intelligence, foresight, and precision will always dismantle chaos. Your strength was never in the size of your support. It was in the sharpness of your strategy. While they built armies of distraction, you built clarity. While they schemed in groups, you stood alone, unbothered, analyzing every move with calm detachment. They mistook your stillness for isolation, not realizing it was calculation. You were never reacting. You were predicting. You saw every alliance forming, every manipulative move unfolding, every false narrative spreading. But instead of responding emotionally, you let them overplay their hands. You didn't need backup. Your insight was your shield, your timing your weapon. You didn't fight with noise, you fought with precision. They equated visibility with dominance, but you understood that the quiet mind observing from the shadows always holds the real control. By the time they realized the board was never theirs, it was already too late. You had mapped every motive, anticipated every move, and accounted for every weakness. Their strength in numbers dissolved into confusion because you turned their alliances against themselves. You let them believe they were leading, while you guided the flow from beneath the surface. And when the dust settled, they finally understood that you were never outnumbered. The game was never about how many stood beside you. It was about who truly understood the battlefield. In the end, their downfall wasn't caused by your noise, but by your mind, the one force they never saw coming, yet could never escape. You never exposed them because you were powerless. You stayed silent because you wanted peace. That's the part they could never grasp. Most people mistake silence for weakness, but in your case, silence was the highest form of control. You could have destroyed their illusions, exposed every hidden agenda, every lie, and every manipulation they thought they'd buried. You could have revealed everything, but you didn't. Not because you lacked the power, but because power isn't about proving you have it. You understood that truth doesn't need to be forced. It only needs time. Exposing them too early would have given them room to spin the story, to play the victim, to disguise the evidence. You chose patience over performance. You let them speak, act, and reveal themselves naturally. While they believed your calmness meant passivity, they didn't realize you were quietly calculating, waiting for the perfect moment when the truth would surface on its own, and hit harder than any words you could have spoken. That's where your real strength lived, in your restraint. You didn't need chaos to prove your point. You allowed life to handle the exposure for you. Their schemes collapsed under their own weight. Their envy leaked through their smiles. Their lies tangled into knots they couldn't untie. And you? You stayed still, composed, unshaken, watching it all unfold exactly as it was meant to. Your silence became a mirror for their guilt. Your patience became the proof of their downfall. And by the time realization struck them, it was already too late. They'd underestimated how powerful stillness could be when paired with truth. Every deception they built eventually turned on them. Not because you fought back, but because truth doesn't require defense. You didn't need to raise your voice to win. You simply stood there, untouchable, while their own actions did the talking. That's why your silence cut deeper than any confrontation ever could. Then came the next revelation. Number 7. You carried a mirror they mistook for innocence. People always assumed your calm nature made you easy to manipulate. They thought your kindness meant vulnerability. Your empathy meant naivety. What they didn't realize was that your gentleness was strategic. You were carrying a mirror that reflected everything back at them. Every hidden motive, every subtle lie, every act of manipulation. They all bounced right back into their own faces. They weren't reading you. They were revealing themselves. Your so-called innocence wasn't weakness. It was observation, disguised as grace. You let people believe they were testing you, unaware that you were quietly testing them. You watched how far they would go to get what they wanted, how easily they would betray, how quickly they would lie. Every attempt to deceive you became another line written in the story of their own undoing. And when the mirror finally turned toward them, when they saw their reflection in your calm eyes, they couldn't handle it. They realized they'd been the ones under evaluation all along. This mirror you carried didn't just expose intentions, it revealed character. It forced people to confront who they really were beneath their pretenses. They thought they were studying you, but they were the ones being studied. The brilliance of your approach was in its invisibility. No accusations, no drama, no warning. Just truth revealed in the quietest, most devastating way possible. They mistook your calm for innocence, your patience for ignorance, and your silence for surrender. But you were always in control. You let people write their own stories, and then you simply handed them the mirror. By the time they saw the reflection, it was too late. Their masks were gone, their egos shattered, and the truth stood tall. Undeniable, unarguable, and inescapable. Your spirit has always had a way of unsettling people, not because you provoke them, but because your very presence brings out what they try hardest to bury. You carry an energy that acts like truth serum. It reaches beneath the surface and forces the hidden parts of others to reveal themselves. You don't need to speak, argue, or confront anyone. Your frequency alone does the work. Those who wear masks feel their falsehoods slipping in your presence. Those who hide jealousy, anger, or resentment feel it bubbling to the surface. They don't know why they suddenly feel irritated, defensive, or uneasy around you, but you do. You know their demons are reacting to your light because your energy doesn't align with deception. This isn't about intimidation or control. You don't try to trigger anyone, you simply exist in truth. Your authenticity is like a mirror that reflects honesty so intensely that anything fake begins to crumble. You're grounded, aligned, and unwavering, and that energy disrupts those who live behind facades. The result? They start exposing themselves through tone, expression, energy shifts, and impulsive reactions they can't explain. They don't realize what's happening until it's too late. By the time they connect the dots, their secrets are visible, their insecurities uncovered, and their masks destroyed. While they spiral in confusion, you remain untouchable, still, calm, and fully in control. They never expected that simply being near you could unravel what they'd worked so hard to hide. Then comes number 9. You don't attack people. You attack patterns. What terrifies people most about you isn't confrontation, it's precision. You don't waste energy on surface-level drama or temporary arguments. You focus on the underlying cycles, the behaviors, manipulations, and lies that keep repeating. While others react emotionally to single moments, you see the architecture beneath those moments. You're not just responding to one act of deceit, you're dismantling the entire structure that allows it to exist. That's why your presence feels threatening even when you're silent. People don't realize they're not being personally targeted. They're being systematically dismantled. You watch patterns like a scientist studying data. When someone lies repeatedly, you don't fixate on the lie. You identify the root that drives it. When manipulation surfaces, you observe the rhythm behind it. Every move you make is calculated, not impulsive. People often blame you for their downfall, but you never attack them. They simply collided with the consequences of their own repeated behavior. You strike only where the cycle breaks itself, and because you focus on systems, not emotions, you conserve power. You don't fight out of ego or revenge, you act out of clarity. That's what makes you so effective and so unpredictable. While others play reactionary games, you rewrite the entire equation. They think they're battling a person, but you're dismantling a mechanism. By the time they realize, it's already too late. The structure they depended on is gone, and they can't even explain how. And finally, number 10, you outsmarted them without ever competing with them. People like to believe that winning requires confrontation, that dominance means louder voices, sharper words, or more dramatic moves. But you never subscribe to that illusion. You don't compete because competition assumes equality, and they were never on your level. While they wasted their energy trying to test, provoke, or outmaneuver you, you stayed detached, patient, and observant. You let them reveal their strategies while you refined your understanding. Every manipulation, every provocation, every attempt to undermine you became data. You didn't react, you recorded. And when you finally acted, it wasn't reaction. It was precision. They never saw it coming because they couldn't perceive the level you were operating on. You weren't playing their game, you were rewriting the rules. Your victories were silent but absolute, unfolding without confrontation, without spectacle. You didn't need to crush anyone. You let their own choices lead them into collapse. By the time they realized what had happened, you were already several moves ahead, calm and unbothered. Your intelligence isn't loud, emotional, or predictable. It's methodical, intuitive, and beyond the reach of ordinary minds. That's why they can't understand you. You're untouchable not because you fight harder, but because you see deeper. You don't win through chaos, you win through clarity. And that's why every time they try to catch up, they find themselves chasing a ghost that's already mastered the game they never understood. They could never defeat you because you don't depend on validation to exist. That's what made you untouchable from the start. Most people can be manipulated through approval, attention, or recognition, but you can't. You don't need applause to feel worthy or permission to move forward. You operate from truth, alignment, and inner purpose, not external validation. And that's precisely why those who thrive on ego, envy, or control never stood a chance against you. They rely on triggering insecurities, playing emotional games, or feeding off attention. But those tactics collapse in front of someone whose self-worth is self-generated. They tried to provoke you, push your buttons, and test your patience, hoping to pull you into their emotional arena. But you didn't bite. You stayed centered, grounded, and unfazed. Your internal compass doesn't shift based on opinions or criticism. It stays fixed on integrity. You don't need to argue to prove your point, because your peace speaks louder than their noise. That kind of independence confuses people who've built their entire identity around control. They can't manipulate what doesn't respond, and that realization makes them feel powerless. Your calm isn't arrogance, it's clarity. You move with purpose, act without hesitation, and withdraw without explanation because you know your value doesn't require validation. That quiet self-sufficiency terrifies those who depend on others' approval to survive. You don't engage in power struggles. You simply opt out of the game. And that's why no one could ever defeat you. Not because you fought harder, but because you didn't need to fight at all. They could never destabilize you, because you were never standing on their foundation to begin with. Then comes the final revelation, number 12. They never realized you were testing them the entire time. They thought they were the ones in control, setting traps and pushing limits to gauge your reactions. What they didn't know was that you were observing them the whole time, analyzing their words, their tone, their subtle shifts in behavior. You weren't reacting impulsively because confrontation wasn't your goal. Clarity was. You wanted to see who they were when they thought you weren't watching. Every lie, every manipulation, every act of envy was recorded, not by vengeance, but by awareness. You didn't need to accuse anyone. You let time expose everything. By giving them room to act freely, you allowed the truth to surface naturally. Every smirk, every over-explained story, every attempt to test your boundaries became confirmation of what you already sensed. They thought they were studying you, but you were the one conducting the experiment. They were so busy trying to measure your reactions that they didn't notice they were failing their own test. Your patience was your power. You didn't rush to expose anyone or interfere with the process. You let people reveal themselves. And when the truth finally surfaced, when the schemes collapsed, the masks fell, and the lies unraveled, they were left stunned. They never realized they'd been under observation from the beginning. You weren't playing their game. You were studying its mechanics. Your silence was the exam, your discernment the answer key. And while they thought they were testing your limits, they were actually showing you theirs. That's why you always stayed ahead, because wisdom doesn't chase, it watches. And patience doesn't lose. It wins quietly, every single time. You don't strike first, you strike final. That's the difference between you and everyone who underestimated you. They equated noise with power, reaction with control, and speed with dominance. They believed that whoever moved first held the upper hand. But you understood something far more dangerous. That patience is the ultimate weapon, and timing is what separates amateurs from masters. You've never been impulsive because you understand that haste is how the unprepared destroy themselves. You don't need to rush to prove your strength because true strength never shouts. It calculates. You don't waste your energy on unnecessary wars or meaningless confrontations. You sit back and let people expose their intentions, their weaknesses, and their lies through their own actions. You study patterns, not emotions. You wait for the right moment, the one where clarity and consequence intersect. By the time you move, it's not a reaction. It's an inevitability. Every choice is deliberate. Every move is decisive. You don't fight battles that drain you. You end them with precision. That's what makes your presence so intimidating. You don't strike out of anger, you strike out of awareness. They mistook your silence for fear, your calm for hesitation, and your patience for weakness. What they didn't know is that your stillness was strategy, your quiet was analysis, and your patience was a countdown. You let people dig their own holes, expose their own faults, and hang themselves with their own rope. You don't need to humiliate anyone. You let truth handle that. And when you finally act, it's swift, sharp, and irreversible. There's no recovery, no defense, and no explanation. When you strike, you close the book completely. That's why your actions linger in people's minds long after the dust settles. You don't just win, you end the story. Your restraint is what makes your power so terrifying. While others scramble to make an impression, you're studying their entire psychology. The tone they use when they lie, the words they avoid when they're afraid, the way their energy shifts when they realize you see through them. You let them play themselves, exhaust themselves, and reveal themselves fully. You aren't chasing control. You become it. And when you finally move, it's as if the universe itself aligns behind your decision. It's not about ego or vengeance. It's about balance. You don't strike to punish. You strike to finalize truth, to restore alignment, to end cycles that have overstayed their time. That's why people fear you without understanding why. You don't fight loudly, and yet you always win. You don't raise your voice, and yet your silence carries the weight of finality. You don't swing first because your strike isn't about being first, it's about being right. Every decision, every withdrawal, every boundary you enforce is an act of quiet justice. And those who once thought you were slow, naive, or passive eventually realize you were calculating the whole time. You let them reveal every piece of their plan so that when you acted, there was no defense left to hide behind. By the time they recognized what happened, they were already defeated, not by force, but by their own exposure. And that leads to the next truth. You were never the victim. You were the hidden judge. People misread your silence as submission, your forgiveness as frailty, and your patience as a lack of boundaries. They believed they could use, test, and manipulate you without consequence because you didn't react the way they expected. What they never realized was that while they were busy performing their illusions of control, you were silently taking notes. Every lie, every insult, every mask. You cataloged it all. You weren't waiting for the right time to fight back. You were observing for the right time to decide. You were never powerless in their games. You were the one writing the unseen rules. Every move they made was evidence. Every deceit was another line in their self-written verdict. You didn't raise your voice because you didn't need to. Judges don't argue with defendants. They simply deliver the ruling when the time comes. You weren't playing for emotional release. You were playing for clarity. You allowed their behavior to unfold, their egos to expand, their motives to rot in daylight until the truth became undeniable. When your judgment came, it wasn't loud, it was final. You withdrew your energy, enforced your boundaries, and let them sit in the silence they created. You didn't need to destroy them, you simply stopped giving them access to your peace. And that alone was their undoing. Because without your presence, their power crumbled. They built their strength on your forgiveness, your empathy, your energy. And when you took that away, the illusion shattered. That's when they realized who you really were. You weren't the victim of their story. You were the one deciding its ending. They expected a reaction. They got revelation. They expected you to break. You simply removed yourself and watched their world collapse. They thought they were controlling you, but they were revealing themselves. Every manipulation, every game, every insult was a test they failed without realizing it. You were never naive. You were evaluating character. And when it was time to render judgment, you didn't need revenge. The truth itself was enough. This is the part that breaks them completely. They thought they were the victors, but they were never even contenders. They believed they were teaching you lessons, but all the while you were grading their tests. You never raised your hand in defense because you were never in danger. You never lost control because you were the one holding the scales. You weren't surviving their chaos. You were documenting it. You weren't absorbing pain. You were gathering proof. Everything we've uncovered here reveals a truth that few will ever grasp. Being underestimated is one of the greatest advantages you can have. It gives you time to observe, space to think, and the freedom to move unseen. You've mastered that art. You've learned to turn silence into data, pain into wisdom, and patience into power. You didn't just react to life. You read it, decoded it, and played it like an intricate game of strategy. From silently studying souls to exposing hidden envy. From dismantling patterns instead of attacking people. From never striking first to always striking final. You've built your power not from aggression, but from awareness. You are the quiet storm that clears the path, the observer who turns deception into exposure, and the strategist who transforms manipulation into self-destruction. They thought they could play you, test you, outsmart you. And every time, They fell into their own traps while you stood back calm and unshaken. You never needed to fight loudly to win. You simply allowed truth and time to do the heavy lifting. You were never powerless. You were never small. You were never their victim. You were, and still are, the hidden judge. Your journey is proof that true mastery doesn't demand attention. Real power doesn't scream. It moves in silence. And patience, when paired with discernment, is unstoppable. You've proven that wisdom is a weapon sharper than any sword, and awareness is armor that no deception can penetrate. You are not just a step ahead, you are on an entirely different level of awareness. You don't just see people, you see through them. You don't just survive challenges, you transmute them. You are the quiet force that makes chaos unravel. The presence that truth cannot hide from. The reminder that silence isn't weakness, it's control. Those who doubted you now see the truth. You were never what they thought you were. You were never the broken one. You were never the prey. You were, and always will be, the silent judge, the invisible strategist, the calm before the reckoning. Unforgettable, unstoppable, and entirely beyond their reach. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the Enlightened Wisdom.